Morning, everybody. Got here, Mitch Ribak, and we have a special guest today, my buddy AJ Mida. He's younger than all my kids, which is really weird for me. Anyway, so I asked AJ to come on and kind of talk to our group a little bit about basically how he started, because I think part of the hardest part for a lot of you guys is getting started. A lot of you guys are doing good, but a lot of you guys are not going where you want to go, and I'm going to, by the way, mute everybody just except for AJ and me. And then if you have a question after AJ and I talk, just unmute yourself, okay? So AJ, again, thanks for coming on, buddy. I really appreciate this. And
yeah, I'm excited.
I know you and I have talked a little bit about how you got started and stuff. I'd love you to share that with everybody, how you did micro, which I thought was really cool on what you did. So if you take a look at it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. So I got involved with EXP all the way back on January 1, 2017. And before that, I was at Keller Williams for the previous 4.5 years, got licensed at the end of 2012. So I've only ever been with 2 companies. Excuse me. I always thought if I ever left Keller Williams, it'd be to start my own independent brokerage, but really didn't have any plans to do that. So I always said that I would never join another real estate brokerage. So EXP made me a liar, and I'm glad that it did. So I joined primarily, the number one reason was the revenue share. I think that's why we're all on the call today. And I mean, we're doing well. I was running a real estate team of about 5 people. I was making around $20,000 a month profit after all the expenses. So life was good. But what I wanted was freedom. And that's the solution that EXP has, which is residual income. I feel like as real estate agents, we get into the industry to have that freedom and quickly find ourselves kind of trapped by our businesses a little bit, maybe working too many weekends and nights. Maybe we'd like to spend a little bit more time with our family or truly enjoy a vacation. So EXP allows you to take a step back a little bit and maybe say no to some opportunities, whereas before you'd have to take those opportunities because you need the money, whereas the residual income buys us back a little bit of our time, which is really neat. So my goal when I first saw the opportunity was to bring in a total of 5 agents a year for 5 years. So I thought, hey, if I can personally enroll 5 agents a year doing what I've always done, which is selling houses, and based on what I saw, that should turn into 500 agents in that same time period. So enroll 25 agents over 5 years and see that expand through the 7 tiers to 500. Under our model, that should be around $400,000 a year in residual income. I thought that would provide the freedom that I was looking for. And because the company is so great and we're starting to figure this thing out a little bit, that happened in 18 months. So June 18th of last year, I hit 500 agents in my organization, had brought in 22. Fast forward to where we are today, I now have a total organization of right around 1,400 agents. So it's been really exciting, and I'm happy to report that the revenue share is real, and I now have that freedom I was looking for.
Awesome. So when we talked before, you were talking a little bit about how you started in Charlotte and kind of built your group of leaders there. If you could talk a little bit on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I believe that it's very important as you're building this thing to have a very strong foundation in the market that you work in. So I have some great people that have partnered with me at EXP, and we really knocked out of the park, really dominating our Charlotte, our Carolina MLS of 13,000 agents. We're now the number 1 brokerage in our MLS, which is really exciting. That just happened, I think, last month. But basically what we've done is we've dominated it through providing a culture that no other real estate brokerage in our local market provides. So if you're in a market and you're like, well, that sounds really great, but it's just me right now, or maybe you have a handful of people in your local market, you can get started a little bit faster with it, but you just need to start small. So we started with just 1 lunch and learn. Lunch and learns are awesome for a few main reasons. The first reason for me, I believe, is for retention for the agents that you already have at EXP, and to get them motivated. So a weekly lunch and learn allows you to see your team on a weekly basis. And your team just might be you and one other person. That's okay. That's how it has to start. It has to start with you and one other person. So it might just be that, but it allows you and that one other person, or you and your 20 people, whatever it is, to see each other on a regular basis. That allows all of you to stay inspired, stay in the energy. And that way agents are less likely at EXP to be demotivated and go back to their previous brokerage or join another brokerage. So I think they're really powerful for retention and just creating a great local culture with your existing EXP agents. And then what most people think is the primary benefit is to attract new agents. And certainly that's one of the major reasons we do them. And part of our growth has been that, a major part of our growth has been that. So that's the second part of it. It's if you have a couple of people at EXP already who are all inviting a couple people to a lunch and learn, well, 3 quickly turns into 9 and 9 quickly turns into 18. And that's how it grows. And we got to the point where we were doing 8 to 10 of them every single week all around the greater Charlotte area, because leaders build leaders. So it's crucial that you step into that role, whether or not you may have been a leader in anything else that you've ever done, but you need to step into that role the best you can to help your team grow. And lunch and learns are an easy way to do that. So that's how we started. And I think it's important. I think a lot of people fear to take action for the fear of starting small. So the way that directly applies to what we're doing here with EXP is if you have a lunch and learn and only one person shows up, or maybe no one shows up, then you feel like it's a failure. However, you need to remember that's the only way to start. You have to start small. So you can't be afraid of it looking small. A great tactical thing that you can say when inviting people to a lunch and learn initially, when it may just be you and 2 other people, is hey, it was so great working with you on that deal that closed last week. Really appreciate you, everything you did on it. Well, hey, I was calling you today because I'm really excited about my company, EXP, and I'm actually hosting a small lunch and learn next week on Tuesday, and would really appreciate it if you supported me and came out to it. Lunch is on me. I'll be talking a little bit about my brokerage, or we'll be having this guest presenter, and you can just hit play on maybe a Brent Gove webinar or something like that. But you're positioning it as, hey, it's going to be small. I'm only inviting some people that I admire in the business. When I thought of successful people, I thought of you. So you're really crafting it to position it like, hey, this thing's going to be small. That way they're feeling good about themselves that you thought of them. And 2, if 5 or 10 people do show up, well, hey, that's still small, and they still feel privileged that you thought of them, and you're not afraid of starting small anymore. So those are my tips for that.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions on that. As you continue to grow, I wrote them down so obviously when you first thought about leaders in your area, you reached out to leaders in your area, I'm assuming, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and then from there, you say you're doing 8 to 10 lunch and learns. Did you sit down with your leaders and say, all right, you're going to do this area, you're going to do that area? You know what I'm saying?
So the way that started, so it wasn't even me who really organized the whole thing. That's what's great about EXP is we bring in such talented people that it doesn't always have to be you. A lot of times in this model, it might not be you that is a huge catalyst for your growth. So, and that's why I love the EXP model. So a gentleman by the name of Bill Price, who has become a brother to me, started this lunch and learn concept. He had 6 Subway franchises in his past, and he knew that if someone had to drive 20 minutes to go get a sub, they're probably going to stay locally and go to whatever local sub shop there is. They're not going to drive 20 minutes to a Subway. So his philosophy was we need lunch and learns in convenient locations all around Charlotte. So he actually had already started them, and I joined him a couple months later in that endeavor of growing the lunch and learns. So it's good to recognize the people in your group who are excited about this and bring this to them, because there's people probably already in your group or people that you're going to meet who are really excited about this but don't know the next steps. So those are the people you want to identify in your organization, sit down with them, brainstorm with them on these types of ideas, share with them that has worked at a high level in other markets, and get their buy-in.
So did you run into people stepping on each other's toes at all?
In terms of recruiting the same person?
Well, that's a given. That's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But I guess more on the lunch and learn part. Like we had an issue right now with, not really an issue, but we have one person doing lunch and learn, and another guy who's not in our organization saw they were doing that, and I think it was actually very right that they did this, but they booked the same venue, the opposite the next day every week when he's doing his.
Yeah, that's funny. So we haven't had that issue in Charlotte. We really are the dominating force in Charlotte. There's nobody else even close. We just got a leg up on people pretty early. I would say, however, if that's happening, I would just ignore what the other people are doing and stay in your lane. If they want to collaborate, great. But if they don't, just stay in your lane, focus on what you can control, which is yourself and what you're doing, and just approach it that way.
Yeah, that's kind of pretty much what I tell people all the time is like, I can't control what other people do, but I can definitely control what I do, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. And the format for Lunch and Learns is very simple. It's just a presentation on EXP. I actually enjoy doing it. It's fun. And like you said, it's not very fun when only one person shows up. And I actually prefer 0 sometimes because at least that way I can just go have lunch. What would you say was your biggest? Well, actually, I got another question for that. So you have your leaders in your group that you talk to on a regular basis, and how do you keep each other accountable? Do you do any type of accountability programs with them, or is it like if you're working, great. If you're not working, that's great too.
Yeah, so and I mean, maybe we could do better in this field, but I feel that we run with the runners. So if people aren't self-motivated, we're not trying to push them. What I've discovered in life, a lot of the times, you just need to find new people, whether it's running a real estate sales team or building your EXP revenue share team. If you have even 50 or 100 people and you've personally reached out to all of them, and this is what I would do if I was a small group and trying to grow, I would reach out to all of them personally and have almost like a motivation quiz for them. So it could be, and they don't know what you're doing, but what you're trying to do is discover motivation. So I would call them, introduce myself, say I'm excited to help them in any way possible. And then I'd ask them a series of questions that I wrote down, like, so why do you join EXP? If it was for commission splits and training, they're probably a new agent and might not be ready for this rev share thing. If they say revenue share, you have a potential builder. So identify the people in your organization that could be a runner. Then start collaborating. And if they show up and do the work necessary to move this ball forward, then keep running with them. But if they drop the ball a couple of times, I would just find new people. You'll be better served finding new energy, new people to run with, than trying to make someone who is a walker a runner. So that's my thought process on that.
Yeah, I've actually found that because I part of the reason I switched my brokerage over was to give my agency the ability to and help them build a better life for themselves because, being my agent, my brokerage wasn't going to get them there. And I've pushed, and I'm at the point where you just said right now where I just stopped doing that unless they're showing initiative, because they're not showing initiative. It's just I can't help anybody work if they don't want to work.
Exactly. And our goals are not their goals. And there might be people listening to this that their goals are not our goals,
right.
But we still want them to be on this call, and we still want them to show up as much as they want to show up. And that's a good thing too. If you sit down with people who you perceive as your leaders and you ask them what their income goals are and how many hours a week they're willing to work to achieve that, and their goal is only $5,000 a month, and they only want to work 3 hours a week to achieve that. Well, it's possible, but they're probably not going to be the person who's really going to run with you. So it's okay. It's not bad that they're not a runner. We still want to help them. It's just you need to be very purposeful on where you're spending your time, and a lot of times it is just finding new people. But one thing I want to point out too, just in terms of lunch and learns, and then we can move on from this topic if you want. if you're in a market and you don't feel like you're a good presenter, it's okay to just hit play on someone else's webinar. I think it's powerful when you can get up in your market, introduce who's going to be presenting on video. So you're edifying them. You're talking about why they should be listening to whoever, and then just hit play on the video. And then at the end, close it out. So it doesn't even have to be you doing all the presenting. And then on the other side of that, if you are in a market where there's a few of you and you think that all of you could be leaders, all of you could be presenters, then have multiple people presenting. So we would actually break down the lunch and learns into 3 parts. So we'd have 3 presenters. And the reason why that has worked out really well is because you get 3 leaders who all have buy-in to the process. So they're all showing up to present, which means there's already 3 people showing up to lunch and learn. And you have 3 people who are all motivated to invite others as opposed to just being you. Because it's easy not to invite anyone and just show up for a free lunch. But if you're presenting, there's a better probability that you're going to want some butts in those seats. So you're going to make some calls to get some people there. So the 3 presenter concept at each lunch and learn has really served us well.
I like that idea a lot. I never actually thought about that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have someone like Rockstar that's coming to town just to do a lunch and learn, they should be the presenter because they're the expert coming in. But if it's just local agents putting these on, I highly, highly recommend trying to get other people involved as presenters. And because, like I said, we're creating leaders and presenters. So you got to let someone step up to the plate, present a small part of the model, and let them grow in that role.
Right, cool. So it's funny, we tried, and I was like your opinion on this. One of our agents did a libation and learn the other night, which was a happy hour, 5 to 7. Have you heard of people doing that at all?
We did one in Maryland. I was the presenter at this time last year, and it went really well. So I think if you're doing the same format, which is everyone shows up, they mingle until the start time, and we would usually start 10 minutes late because we're dealing with realtors here. So yeah, so at this particular event, people got there, I think about 45 minutes after we started. That was the plan. People had a drink, some appetizers, and then I presented for 45 minutes. And then afterwards we hung out, and there was still a few drinks there. We had a private room at a hotel, and it turned out really great. We had about 100 people there, and it was a very powerful event. So I think if it's managed properly, then it could be a great idea.
Now, are you bringing on sponsors to help pay for the events?
Yeah, for the most part. Some of the smaller ones sometimes it becomes more effort to get a sponsor to pay $100 than it's worth. So the 3 leaders will just cover the cost. So on the smaller lunch and learns, after just trying to find good sponsors over and over, we decided just to pay for it ourselves. So it's typically maybe $150 a month for each leader of that lunch and learn. So it's not that expensive. But for the bigger events, like we do events that are $15,000, where we'll have hundreds of people show up, and we'll bring in a sponsor to pay about a third of it, and then the leaders in that market will pay for the rest of it.
So we got about 10 more minutes here, and I wanted to open it up to questions. What I want to do is, if you can do it by text, so just do the chat button there and send me what you want to ask, because instead of having a bunch of people talking over each other. And while you're doing that, if anybody does that, it's always the question if anybody's actually going to ask a question, right? AJ, if you don't mind sharing, can you tell them a little bit? Because I've been following you for since you've been since I've been with the company, and I watched you grow from literally, I think, like when I first saw you, maybe 100 people in less than a year and a half to where you are today, right? Because I joined 2 years ago. What was your biggest mistake? Or biggest
question? Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, for me personally, I mean, I struggle with thinking in terms of failure and mistakes. So I just don't really like those words. I like to think of everything as a learning experience.
Absolutely.
For me personally, what I would say is, as you are growing and having success, really just doubling down right now. I didn't share this as part of my story, but my wife and I, we traveled the country for 11 months last year. We sold our house August 1st, and we just traveled the country for fun in a motorhome, which was very unique. And most people are like, "You're crazy," and we are a little bit crazy. But so I would say, in hindsight, doubling down as opposed to maybe taking my foot off the gas. So just know that as you start making a lot of money, more money than you've probably ever made, complacency can set in, and just learn from others' mistakes. Don't take your foot off the gas, double down, and just keep hitting it hard.
Cool. Cool. All right, so we got a few questions here. Let's see. So do you use a sign-in sheet at your lunch and learns?
Yeah, we have a sign-in sheet. We usually have someone that they're signing people in. We really don't do anything with the sign-in sheet, but we do have one. And that's where people pick up a name, like a sticker name badge too, to put on their shirt.
And one question here is, how often do people ask you about the math? You know, I guess the math, at least I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about on that. Are you, I'll unmute you.
Oh, sorry there. Yeah, so the math, like, you know, if they're with Keller Williams and they're doing a team and they had a team, you know, if you're kind of figuring out what their hot buttons are and why they might be thinking about leaving, you know, that was, I think, what Gene was saying, is that we try to figure out what's hurting them. And then obviously if it's the money, I couldn't back up the conversation right now about, you know, well, you've got a team and you've got 15 agents and you've got this. And I think I shared that spreadsheet with you guys that I saw, but I still couldn't even back that up. So when someone is really specifically a numbers person, what do you do to tackle the numbers? Like if they've got a KW team and they've got 15 agents and, you know, all of that.
Yeah, so really just black and white. How much is it going to cost them to operate their current business at EXP versus Keller Williams, for example? Yeah, so yeah, people do ask that a lot. You'll typically get that from more experienced agents or brand new agents, and they're just trying to squeeze every penny from the transaction. That's a tougher conversation because they just don't get it. But the experienced people, I like you mentioned a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet too that I would walk somebody through on a Zoom call or in person, and I found that to be pretty effective. I try to keep it simple. So I find that to be pretty effective, and I'm very open with the opportunity in terms of, I'm not trying to sell them, because a lot of times, help them make the best decision for them, because oftentimes we're not the cheapest company to be at. We'll typically be cheaper than Keller Williams, but oftentimes people are coming from brokerages where we're not the cheapest up front. So we need to help educate them on the opportunity of revenue share and stock, where they're going to make up their money on the back end versus the front end. So I do that, and tell stories too. So if you can share a story of someone who came over and how their business has either grown or maybe they added $5,000 a month in residual income to their business. So share stories, because a lot of times, even if you are doing a good job sharing the facts and the stats, you know, there's good sayings where it's something like facts tell, stories sell. Yeah, exactly. So if you can think of a story, maybe share Mitch's story. He's got a great story. How I'm sure he gave up some front end money for the opportunity of the back end. So you can share his story. So.
All right, so another question. What's the most common objection you receive, and how do you respond to them?
Yeah, most common objection. So typically what I found, if the model's presented correctly, then you don't get a lot of objections. So if you're not EX-spewing all over yourself, that's like trying to explain the model yourself. I mean, you just get yourself in hot water when you do that. That's when all the objections come out. So if you're doing it correctly, which is create some curiosity, and then share a tool with them. A tool is either lunch and learn or a webinar. And then get them on a phone third-party validation with Mitch or somebody else. The objections are very, very I mean, oftentimes non-existent. Like I just did a 3-way call this morning and there was 0 objections. So that's the right way to do it. But if you do get objections, the most common ones I would say would be office space. You're typically going to get that from new agents because, again, they're tripping over dollars to pick up dimes. So you're going to get that from new agents. Oftentimes you can share with them how much office actually costs in their market, which typically isn't. And typically their savings from joining EXP oftentimes offsets that. Or I'll talk to agents who are already paying for office space, but they're bringing up the office objection. It's like, you're already paying for it at Remax. Just go get it over here on your own. And then, the objection of, why is our company losing money will come up. That's probably the second biggest one. And that's a tough one. I'm not a financial analyst. So I typically will say, that's a really great question. I'm not a financial analyst. But if you'd like to talk to someone who understands it a whole lot better than I do, I'll get you on the phone with them. So,
and I have and when I talk to people, because I get that, okay, that's probably the biggest one that comes up for the people that think they're stock market people. And I say, well, Amazon didn't make a profit for 14 years.
Yeah.
Building the company, reinvesting in the company, so that costs money to do. It's a pretty simple answer. Yeah. It's true. It's
exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. And I just used that one the other day too, because I'll like people that say that are just trying to poke holes at it. So that's like another thing to say. So like when after they watch the video or go to lunch and learn, don't say what do you think, because their mind's typically going to go to a negative space and try to poke holes at it. So you say, what did you like best? So right off the bat, just by changing your scripting on that, they're starting to think of what they like best, as opposed to, well, I'm going to poke holes in it now. And if they bring it up, use Mitch's example about Amazon. I think that's great. And oftentimes I'll say, I'm not a stock analyst, so I don't get that at a high level. Do you have a financial background or something?
Right. And
just kind of put it back on them. Like, do you even know what you're talking about?
Yeah, and most don't, which is really fun.
Exactly. And if they do, get them. I mean, there's someone in your organization that will talk to them at a high level about stocks.
Right.
I'm sure.
Next question I have is, if an attendee is not accompanied by an invitee, do you follow up? Do you send them emails, etc.? Obviously, somebody got there somehow, but there's nobody there, and they didn't say who they're from. How do you do it? Do you follow up personally, or whoever's holding the meeting follow up? How do you do that?
Yeah, so we don't get attendees who haven't been invited by somebody, because we're not running ads for it or anything like that. So they would have been invited by somebody. If the person who invited them is not there, then we would not follow up with them in any way. We would just direct them back to the person who invited them.
Cool. That's all we have on questions here. Does anybody else have any more before we let AJ go? And are you in Puerto Rico today? Nope. All right, cool. AJ, I can't thank you enough for coming on board and helping out. And I've been really impressed watching what you've been doing, and it's fun to watch. And I'm chasing after you. You got a little head start. I'm gonna have to come get you, I guess. And we'll see you. Are you gonna be in Vegas on the 20th?
I'll be there, man. I typically don't miss anything. That's probably the biggest thing I can give wrapping this thing up is go to as many events as you can, because that's where lives are changed. That's where you truly make a decision to make this thing happen. Because I'm well aware that nothing I said today is like probably something that you haven't heard before. So it's more about truly making a decision to take action, and the decisions are made at these events. So I never miss one.
Yeah, I find they're ultra motivating. You go there and you meet people, and it's not people like AJ or even myself. It's really people that got 6 people directly I know, and they're making $350 a month. And those are the people that are inspiring to me, because those are people that, $350 pays a car payment. It pays for something. $1,000 pays for a lot. Well, unless you're in California like Lisa, pays for mortgages, right? So everybody, every little bit helps. And I think the events definitely are my favorite things to do with EXP, and meet people and just chat with people about where they're at. And I think it's huge. It's totally helpful for me. And I know Pat, who's on the call with us, we love going to this event. So I will see you in a couple of weeks then. And
I'll be there.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks very much, AJ.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.